All right, guys, it is time for the interview portion of this week's episode. As promised, a huge guest, possibly one of the biggest guests we've ever had on Flashback Wrestling. Please welcome the son of the Hall of Famer, Ravishing Rick Rude, Rick Rude Jr. Rick, what's going on, man?
How's it going, buddy? How are you?
I am great, dude. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and coming on and talking a little bit about your dad. As I've told you before, your dad is one of my favorites of all time, one of the greatest heels in professional wrestling history. I couldn't wait to do this episode, and I could not wait to talk to you and get a little bit of insight.
Yeah, man, I was thrilled with the opportunity. I appreciate you giving me a call.
Nah, dude, definitely. Like I said, this is going to be a huge episode, and I'm really, really grateful that you were open to do it. Man, first of all, let's just jump right into it, dude, because I don't want to. You're a busy man. I don't want to waste too much of your time. First of all, dude, when give me that aha moment, that eureka moment when you realized that your dad was a professional wrestler.
I'm going to be honest with you. That moment came like one year, like the first day of school, when like it was normal for me. Like that was just my dad's job. Like I think as a kid, you don't really grasp like, your dad's your hero anyways as a child. So like when your dad's like other people's heroes, you kind of just like forget about it because you're just starstruck with them just being your parent. But I think I'll notice like maybe second grade, like he brought me in the first day and everyone was like, that's Rick Rude. That's Rick Rude. And I was like, that's when it kind of hit me. Like, I was like, all right, well, this is kind of, and then ever since then, I guess just growing up and seeing how the world works, going out to eat, like people would come up to him and ask for autographs and things like that. So I would say it happened pretty young. Like I just noticed like people like giving him attention and staring at him.
Oh yeah, no, that must have been quite the spectacle whenever your dad walked around, whenever your dad came around. How did he explain it to you? But did he sit down and just be like, hey man, hey son, I'm a wrestler, this is what I do, and people might or might not treat me a certain way over it, or like how did he sit you down and pretty much break it down for you?
He really didn't. I mean, like I said, that's just who he was and that's what he did. I mean, in complete truthfulness, like he not many, like he didn't really owe anyone an explanation for anything, like whether it was his career or, like his big thing was, and I think a lot of other guys like who worked with him, other workers would say, he just kind of, was his own person. He didn't really give a shit what anyone thought. Like, like he worked, he loved the business, like he was passionate about it, nonstop talked about it all the time. And to me, that's like no different than a dad who likes building toy boats. That's, my dad just happened to be like 250 pounds and like built like a brick shit house.
Oh yeah, I bet, dude. So it's pretty safe to say he lived the gimmick then, right? I heard you, saying people would come up to him and ask for autographs and stuff like that. So he was Ravishing Rick inside and outside the ring, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it's funny. He put on this really like kind of, for like outgoing, just like personality, like he was better than everyone. In real life, that couldn't have been further from the truth. Like, his fans would come up to him and he was always so respectful. Like if we were out having a family dinner, he would say, hey, I appreciate it. I love the support. Thank you guys so much. But, I'm with my family. Can you like give me some time just to spend, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't Ravishing Rick Rude all the time. I mean, he was Richard Irwin Rude when he was with his family. And I feel like the reason he tried and worked so hard and was so excellent at being, that heel that everyone remembers was because like all he wanted was just a good family life. And the way he was able to get it was by being that badass in the ring.
Oh, that makes total sense, dude. Kind of, I understand, like, when you're that intense in the ring and you live the character for the business, I guess the one thing you want was to be able to go home to your family and, kind of decompress from that. So that's totally, totally understandable. Hey, man, let me ask you straight up. So, did you ever get in trouble in school for, maybe mimicking I mean, I saw the Hall of Fame speech. Everybody's familiar with that. So, I mean, did you ever bust that out in school,
Man, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think I pulled out at like his hip swivel every time I would like hit like a sack or something and, football in high school. But really, no, man, like that was always his thing. It's weird. A lot of people always say like, why didn't you go into wrestling and this and that? And like, it was just another career option to me. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad was like rough with us and we always played rough and we, rolled around, played sports, everything like that. But it was like, I was never really kind of into the whole thing. I saw how much he was gone and like how much we missed him and stuff. And I kind of wanted to be there for my kids for that kind of thing. So I always let that be my dad's deal and just respect it because it's like, I got mad respect for all these, next generation guys whose parents did it. who are in there now just like killing the game. But like to me, I just respect that as what my father did. But I can tell you, like, I know my father didn't want us getting into that. And I kind of want to respect his wishes in that regard.
No, yeah, I definitely understand that. So do you used to watch them all the time on TV?
All the time, never missed one.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. That must have been so cool. I mean, I can't even imagine looking on the TV and being like, "Wow, that's my dad." And
Well, it's
and he
funny,
was
man. You
so
know,
good at
like
what he did.
he would be heading out, and I would be like, "Hey, Dad, like we're gonna watch tonight. Like, will you blow me a kiss or something on TV?" And like we would watch it, and like he would get swung around the ring or the ropes or something. And when the camera came up to him, he would like blow a kiss, and like it was fun. You know what I'm saying? Like we could tell him like do something for us, and like he would go on TV and do it.
Oh man, that's so awesome. That must have been so cool. Like your own little inside joke, you know what I'm saying, with your dad.
Yeah,
Nobody, who knows how many, times people might have seen him blow kisses and only you and you probably your brother and sister knew that that was directed at you guys at home. So that man, that's super awesome.
yeah, man. It was he was always really open to just playing around and having fun with it. Like I said, it was his passion. Like he lived, ate, and breathed it.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. It resonates. It came through. You know what I'm saying? Like it always came through the screen. That's why your dad is a legend, and why one of my favorites and one of the favorites of so many professional wrestling fans across the world. I have to ask you this question, dude, because I'm a huge belt mark, and your dad has owned some of the most iconic, or has won some of the most iconic championship belts in professional wrestling history. The beautiful Intercontinental title, from back in the
That's a big
'80s.
one, yeah.
The U.S. Championship, the big gold. When he used to bring those home, dude? Did you ever, did he ever let you throw one over your shoulder and feel it out and any stuff like that?
Oh man, yeah, I've got so many props and things like that. Like he had that big feud, with Ultimate Warrior back in the day. That was probably, even more so than Sting. I think a lot of people like kind of it's his rivalries were like Ricky, Steamboat. You had Ultimate Warrior and then Sting. Those were like his big career. Once he WCW and everything, and it was huge and international. And like he used to bring home the wildest stuff, man. Like I've got like speed bags with like the Ultimate Warrior's face painted on it from like promo videos. We've got boots. I've got like 6 of his robes. We've got all kinds of goofy stuff, man.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. What about the tights, dude? Yeah, everybody wants to know about the tights. The most iconic, probably. Your dad, honestly, dude, probably has the most iconic set of tights and design, like the airbrushing and all that stuff. Because when I was a kid, I used to love how RVD did it. But I always remember thinking like when I would watch RVD, I'm like, dude, that's just Rick Rude did that first. He was the man, and that's one of because I'm a nerd, dude. I collect action figures, I collect all that stuff. And I remember I always wanted I feel like they've never really done him justice on the action figures as far as like the creativeness and like the detail that they put into the tights.
Yeah, you know what's funny? A little side note on the action figures. They come out with a couple recently that didn't even have his signature anchor tattoo.
Yeah, I've seen that, and I don't understand how I don't understand what like companies like WWE that's so detail oriented with so many things can let something like that slide, like miss that. And yeah, that's weird, dude. I actually because I follow a few big pages on my own personal account, and I'm a big action figure nerd too. So I did catch that because a lot of people bought it and pointed that out. That like, hey, they forgot the anchor tattoo on Rick Rude, which is so iconic, dude.
Yeah, that's the first thing I noticed when I saw him. But going back to the pants, yeah, like that was like. See, and that like a lot of people like don't see it the way you see it. They just saw like this, but like this guy literally like back in the day they had more creative power. I know like one of the big themes right now going on in the WWE, just from like hearing things around and reading a few articles, is a lot of people are like kind of steering more towards that AEW scene, and the reason being is because they're losing controlling like creative freedom. Back in the day, these guys used to like sit in the locker room and say, hey, what's the best way we can get the fans engaged in this? Like like they would work on these storylines for weeks, like the actual wrestlers would. Nowadays, it's like everything's done for them. And, back then that was his way of kind of like the whole Jake the Snake, like he would customize each one of those pants just to get the crowd like, oh, I can't believe he did that. He put his, wife on it, like crazy stuff like that. And that was all him. Like he came up with that. They didn't do that for him. Like we had this woman who would make his spandex make those tights every single week. He'd come home with a new idea. She'd get them printed up for him, and then he'd be off again to do another show.
Oh man, that's so awesome. I had never heard, I always wondered like to be honest, at first I probably thought that, WWE themselves had somebody make those for him, but to know that he, that was all original, that was all from him, from his head. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. And I agree with you 100%. Like, it sucks because obviously I'm a huge fan of your dad's, and I'd love to see him, in the current day, because I feel like that kind of heel and that kind of like character is what's missing. But I also recognize that he wouldn't be the same Rick Rude. He wouldn't be allowed to be the same Rick Rude nowadays. He'd be controlled and he'd be scripted and stuff like that. And it just would. It's sad to see how much pro wrestling has changed. But and a part of me is glad that he was in that era, because we saw the true magic that was Ravishing Rick Rude. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys weren't cookie cutter back then because they were all different. Everything came from themselves, not from,
Well, I mean, they got to create they created these things. And, I feel like I don't watch, I don't watch as much as I used to. Like, if it's on every once in a while, I'll just, check it out. And I talk to people all the time, who are, workers, but like, to me, it was like, back then there was energy to it. You know what I mean? Like, every single week you could not wait for this to come on, because you just truly had no idea what was going to happen. I mean, if you think back when you were a kid, they used to have the most like outlandish matches ever, like just absolutely insane. And today it's just not like that anymore. And I really feel like, that goes back to these guys being able to do their jobs. Like, they're professional wrestlers. They're professional. Let them do it. Let them put on the show.
Exactly. I feel like nowadays they treat them more like performers than, they forget the rest of it. Like, yeah, your dad was a performer. The guys back then were performers, but they weren't micromanaged to that extent. It's like, you got to let, you got to let a peacock spread its wings. You know what I'm saying? Like, show its feathers. Like, you got to let them do what they do at the end of the day. And whether they sink or swim, that's on them. But you can't micromanage everything.
Well, exactly. And I mean and you can see that in anything. I mean, if someone's just carrying someone in the fan based audience, the television, like, no one's really with it, but they're just carrying them. It's not good. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for the brand. It's not good for the sport. If there's guys, who are in the main lineup right now, who everyone does not understand why they're there. They can't cut good promos. They're not in the best shape. They're not, they're not creative. They're not original. Why are they like the top guys? It makes no sense to me.
Oh, same here, dude. You're preaching to the choir. And that's why I do. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. I've loved it pretty much my entire life. And when I started getting into this line of of what I do now, I was at a crossroads at a certain point where I'm just like, okay, well, am I going to focus on current day wrestling, or am I going to focus on stuff from the past? And I went with the past because I don't know, dude. It's just this feeling. I know it's part of it's probably nostalgia, but there's just something about it. There's magic there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can see it, you can feel it. Like, it'll pop through the screens. Whether it's your dad, whether it's guys like Kurt Hennig, Hogan, Savage, like so many guys from that era, and just professional wrestling in general in the past. There's just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if it's kayfabe. I don't know if it's the hot crowds. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but there's a magic that was there that at some point disappears and is not prevalent anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm hoping AEW can recapture it. I see a lot of potential with them, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said that for sure. I know that it's there right now, because I just personally don't see it, and which is the reason why I went with the whole flashback and the whole retro wrestling angle, because I don't know, man. I just think it's always, and I didn't want to sit here. I never wanted to sit here and just be super critical of everything. And I felt like if I just sit here and do current day stuff, like, it'd be really hard for me to stay positive, which is why I love doing the flashback episodes and why I love doing retro stuff, because it gives me a chance to relive it, and it gives me a chance to share it with some people that aren't too familiar. And your dad is definitely one of those guys that I love. I know you've seen it, dude. I love posting content about your dad.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like, like, to your point though, like, of course, if you love something, like, the last thing you want to do is like scrutinize it and just find everything that's wrong with it. But, I'm a big believer that that's a huge responsibility of the fans and like people who do podcasts like this, because, the truth of the matter is the WWE, AEW, any of the other promotions wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fans and these conversations that we're having. Like, you guys are the consumers. You know what I'm saying? If you're not liking the way the industry is going, it needs to be talked about, because they need to know that stuff. Because like you said, the glory days are glory days. Like, those are never going away, but that's the standard. Like, let's get back to that. If you don't like it, let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully one day it'll change.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it should go on a better track. AEW having competition, I feel like, is definitely something WWE's been lacking for the last 15 years. And so I'm really hopeful.
They monopolized it when they bought out all the regional promotions. They monopolized wrestling, like that point blank. Vince McMahon made wrestling what it is. Like, he absolutely constructed it all to where it is today. And I feel like this AEW guy, not really familiar with the owner, but I know that like from what I've seen from like Cody Rhodes and people like that, like he's really given these guys an opportunity to like create this business kind of in the same fashion that, you know, his dad did it in, my dad did it in, and like you said, all these greats from the 80s did.
Yeah, dude, that's one of the reasons why myself and a bunch of so many wrestling fans are so excited and so hopeful for AEW. It's not just the whole fact of like, oh, we want to see WWE, you know, and that's the thing. It's like I think it's a misconception that people think that we're pushing for AEW to succeed so that WWE can crumble. It's not that, dude. If given a shot at the truth serum, most professional wrestling fans, most WWE fans / haters will tell you that the reason we want AEW to succeed is because we've seen WWE with competition. You know what I'm saying? Like the Jim Crockett promotion days, that, you know, the WCW days, when there's competition, it elevates. Yeah, it elevates both brands, dude. So I'm really hopeful because, like I said, I'm a huge fan, and it gives us moments like when your dad showed up on Raw and SmackDown. Like, you know, your dad's a legend for that.
I mean, what about this? Did you know about like his involvement back with ECW?
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him working a few stints in ECW. He was under the mask, and he ended up feuding against the Triple Threat, and then he eventually even was worked with the Triple Threat. And I remember I wanted to ask you about that. He does a one-off for ECW, correct? He does like a one night fight where he actually is in the ring and competes for ECW. I think it's like I'm not sure if it's like it's ECW Heatwave '97. He teams with Dreamer against Sandman, or Dreamer and Sandman against RVD, Sabu and Lawler. What do you remember about that? About your dad, you know, his time in ECW?
You know, it's really funny. So I was with him at that match. Wow. That was actually in Tampa, I believe, or in Orlando, and we were at my grandmother's house, and he went and did the rehearsals and everything and got everything, you know, good. Came back, picked me up, and I remember it because we almost had a car accident on the way there. He like the back end of our Suburban like slid out going around like a big turn on the interstate, and we almost wrecked. But yeah, he was like really working towards that in-ring comeback, man. You know, and he got in there and he did that. And he was fine. Like, he wasn't really, I mean, his body hurt all the time after his injury. And like, even before that, man, like, it's really, I went and did the WWE tryout, and I can tell you, like, I can tell all the fans, all the people who hate wrestling, they're like, undoubtedly, these guys are tough as shit. Like, I'm telling you, the beating that your body takes just running ropes, and these guys do it for 20, 30 years. Like, my hat's off to them for their level of toughness. But, you know, like, my dad's back, that's something that was hard to get over. And when he was ready, like physically back ready to actually get in that ring and do that match you were talking about, he couldn't wait. He was ecstatic. That like brought him back.
That's awesome, dude. Because a lot of people, I've heard about the match. I didn't know about, you know, that's why I'm loving having you on, because you're bringing insights and stuff like that. But you already mentioned it, so let's kind of talk about it. The injury, dude. The back injury happens in Japan. There's a lot of rumors, or a lot of, you know, rumor and innuendo, as Bruce Pritchard would say, about the hard feelings afterwards. A lot of people would say that, you know, that your dad or Sting had some heat with your dad after that injury, because obviously it cost him that time in his career. What can you tell me about that?
All right. Well, obviously, you know, there's going to be hard feelings just because, like, it wasn't because of what Sting did. Like, it wasn't like my father was pissed at him, like, you did this intentionally. I think there's kind of like an involuntary response there to kind of feel a certain type of way just because it was him. But I can tell you this, before that match and after that match, no matter what way my dad like personally felt, and maybe he did tell some people, but he certainly never told us. All I can speak for is the way he conducted himself prior and after. We were always friends with, you know, Sting's family. We were always friends with the Bordens. Like, we would go to kids' birthday parties, and this is before and after the accident, and nothing ever really changed. And, you know, I don't know what the speculation is about how Sting's responsible for this, but what was really happening was they didn't have those mats, and that platform that he actually landed on the corner of was supposed to be like extended out like another 4 feet. And there was supposed to be pad on it, and there wasn't. That's how he broke his back. That move was planned. They knew that was going to happen, but the stage wasn't set up right, and he landed on the corner of it, fractured his vertebra.
Yeah, that was always my understanding of the injury as well. Obviously, you read stuff and you hear stuff, and you know everybody has a podcast nowadays, and then rumors start. You know, however they start now. So I was really looking forward to asking you about that because yeah, man, I mean that it sucks. It's a shitty situation. Obviously, I wish it wouldn't have happened because arguably at that point, your dad was at the peak of his career. You know, he was
Yeah.
the world heavyweight champion. He had the big gold belt. He was on fire as a heel. Let me ask you this though, real quick just from an outside standpoint, where did you prefer your dad at, or where do you think your dad preferred to work at, WWF or WCW?
Quite honestly, I would say WCW.
I would say the same thing, honestly. That was just from an outside observation, but to me they treated him like more of what he deserved to be at WCW. In WWE, he was a great heel, and that's probably where a lot of people remember him and got their first exposure to him. But I personally feel that WCW treated him like the star that he was. You know what I'm saying? Like I hate this narrative that he's not a world champion because it was the WCW International World Heavyweight title. To me, and I've had, dude, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, I've had so many arguments on my page with guys that are trying to discredit that because I don't give a shit, dude. I'll go out there and I'll go out there and I'll argue with someone because I mean, to me, the logic I used to it because somebody tried to be like, oh, well, that wasn't the NWA title or whatever, so it doesn't count. And I'm just like, dude, when Ric Flair left, nobody beat him for that belt. Ric Flair came back, won that belt back that he never lost. The NWA decided, or WCW pulled out of the NWA. They decided to rename that belt. That doesn't change anything. That doesn't change the lineage of the belt. That doesn't change the physical belt. It's still the big gold. And your dad won it 3 times. So it really, that's one of the things that really grinds my gears when someone tries to discredit your dad as being like a never having been the world champion. Because to me, I'm like, bro.
Well, I mean, you got to understand though too. You know, if someone's going to argue that point, they might not be like 100% knowledgeable of the fact that it's not really these guys' decision. You know, like he can't help that, like you said, like, you know, Ric Flair left and then they changed the name. Like stuff like that happens. Like, you know, just because he wasn't in the right place at the right time to do it, or even, you know, look at the opportunities of who he got to wrestle. You know, my dad and Hulk Hogan only wrestled 1 time.
Yeah, that's a travesty, dude, because I feel like your dad was the perfect heel for Hogan back in the 80s.
Do you know why they never wrestled after that?
I'm gonna assume that that doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Hulk Hogan specifically, and I've talked to him since like my father's passing. Like I've ran into him, and he's like, "Your dad was like a Tasmanian devil, brother." He was like, and that just wasn't my game. You know, like he fed off the Ultimate Warrior. They both had this explosive, fast-paced energy in the ring. Same with Sting. Same with Steamboat. Hulk Hogan was the showman. He was that bump into you, turn around, get the crowd going for 5 minutes, then turn back around, you know, like drop a knee or something. Like my dad was just full steam, balls to the wall all the time. And Hogan didn't like that. I think they wrestled in 87 and it was really cool. And they did like an arm wrestling thing in the middle of the mat in the ring. They both laid down on their stomach and they arm wrestled. I think you can find the video on YouTube still. That's the only match they ever did together. And then after that, Hogan said no. So, you know, Hogan had all these belts that my dad never would have got the chance at if Hogan was holding because he just refused to work with him.
Yeah, and see, that's the part, and you know, Hogan catches a lot of heat, and I'm not a guy that I'll call a spade, dude. Like to me, 2 things can be true at the same time. Hogan can be, you know, the Babe Ruth of professional wrestling. That's definitely true, but at the same time, he can also be responsible for holding a lot of great talents back and for kind of, you know, hurting the business in a sense. And I truly believe that because there's guys like Curt Hennig that he did work with but never really wanted to put over. There's guys like Jake that he never wanted to really work with because of the popularity issue. There's guys like your dad who, you know, your dad was kind of really one of the first cool heels. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a heel, but he was so fucking cool doing it that it's just like I know he had to turn a bunch of people over to his side.
His whole shtick was you hated him because you wanted what he was like putting on. You know what I'm like? Having the girls come up out of the crowd and stuff like that and kiss them in the ring and like all that, like, you know, you watch that and you hate it. You're like, damn, screw you, man. Like you suck. But like at the same time, you love to cheat. Like you love to boo that. Like you don't want to boo someone like it, that worked. And like, it's a shame, dude.
Yeah, it really is a shame, dude. Because like I said, he was almost the perfect heel to just in a character standpoint. He was almost the perfect heel to come up against Hogan. Because man, hey, dude, your dad probably has top two, honestly, physiques in professional wrestling history. That he was kind of the first guy of that era that had that look. You know what I'm saying? He looked like he was chiseled out of marble, but he was not big to the point where like the Hulks and the, you know what I'm saying, guys like that, where they were big and it kind of took away their mobility. Your dad was kind of a hybrid and one of the first of his kind, really, where he had definitely the physique, but the slenderness and then just everything about him. He was one of a kind for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and he, like, man, that was his life. Like, when he was home, man, we had a full gym in our basement, and like, you know, like talking about when we first got going, talking about him like living his persona, you know, like he wasn't really like an ass in real life, like he was on TV, you know, for ratings and to get the fans involved and things like that. But as far as like that whole like thinking he was the sexiest man alive, I can tell you that was one part of Ravishing Rick Rude that was born with him and then died with him. Like, that man truly would be in the gym working out for 4 hours, sweaty, and freaking Rolling Stones would be on, and he'd be dancing in the mirror down in the gym. Like, he loved his physique. He loved staying in shape, and he loved being better looking than everyone else. And like you said, you got to give the man credit where credit's due. He was chiseled, symmetrical, but like not overdoing it. He was fast. He was athletic. And trust me, the dude was tough as nails. Like, all the other workers, even today, like I hear, you know, interviews and stuff like that. Who is the real life toughest wrestler that no one would want to fight in real life? 9 times out of 10, if these guys were working in the business when my dad was, they'll say Rick Rude.
Oh yeah, dude, Rick Rude is definitely a notorious badass. I got to ask you this though, because your dad's a Minnesota boy, one of the like you said it in the Hall of Fame speech, bro. Like, I don't know what they were putting in the water back in the day in Minnesota, but they pumped out legend after legend after legend. Who was some of your dad's like closest allies and closest friends? You know, guys that would always be over at the house and, you know, wrestlers like that.
Man, Kurt Hennig, man. Kurt, you know, he had a couple other guys, you know, who like were some way affiliated. Barry Darso was one of his good friends. Paul Orndorff. Him and Paul Orndorff were really close, and Jesse Ventura even. I think him and Jesse hung out a few times, like ice fishing. You know, they used to go up to Lake Minnetonka and ice fish. But really, man, you know, I'll tell you some of his closest friends who were always over at the house. The Road Warriors. They were always over. Let me think. Even Mick Foley. Like, Mick was always over there. And then Jim Neidhart. Neidhart. Yeah, I grew up with like Natty and her family and stuff, and like they were awesome. Like, my mom and, you know, his wife were best friends, and like Jim was great. Like, him and my dad were always together.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, those are all you dropped some pretty big names right there, bro. I always obviously knew him and Kurt were real close. The whole Minnesota boy connection, the whole Heenan family thing when they were back in WWE. So I always knew about them, but I was just, you know, real curious to see who else was always around the house when you guys were kids. Dude, what the family mustache? Let me know that you rocked it at one point, man. Because your dad has probably the best mustache in pro wrestling history. I'll give him that one.
Man, if you want to extend that, he had the best mustache in wrestling and porn and cop movies. I don't give a damn. Like, he had a mustache, bro.
His mustache is iconic, dude. I know you've seen the Ravishing Rick shirts where it's just basically the silhouette of his hair and then the mustache.
Yeah, look on my Instagram, man. we got a onesie when my son was born.
Oh yes, I remember that. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. No, he made me rock that mullet too. Like, when I was born, like I was a year old. Like, I think the first year of my life, I had the same mullet my dad did, and like the perm and everything like that. But yeah, no, my dad, I don't know what it was with him and the mustache. Like, he would go through these weird phases where he would do like a mustache, and then he would do a goatee, and then he would do like these like chops, kind of like with like a sharp point going down his jaw. Like, when he was with the NWO and like they were doing all that stuff, like, I don't know what he was doing with his hair and his like, I don't know what was going on. Like, but I tell you what, my mom like hated all of it. She used to tell him to shave it all the time. And I think like maybe maybe 92, 93 when he started like shaving his face completely. Like, that was he hated that. And then he pulled the mustache out again.
Whose idea was the haircut, dude? Because your dad, like you said, he had the little perm, and that was super iconic for a while. And then he shows up, was it SummerSlam 1990, and it's a completely different look. He's got the clean cut. Whose idea was that? Do you remember? Was that a big deal around the Root House when he
Well,
finally cut
actually,
his hair?
that was the year I was born, and he just moved down to Florida, like Tampa. I was born in Tampa. That's where he met my mother. So I think it was kind of a combination of like my mom saying like, "All right, cut the hair off," and also now he's living somewhere where it's consistently over 100 degrees, and it's just a pain in the ass to have long hair.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that was probably an issue. So hey man, you kind of already brought it up. The '90s, man. Your dad is a member of two iconic stables, the NWO, and of course he's a member of D-Generation X, a pioneer member. Obviously, it's I hate
Well,
having this argument.
it depends on who you ask. That's another one where people say, like what was really his role. But yeah, I mean, if you get down to the nitty gritty of it, trust me, like, you know, Paul, like Triple H, like if you asked him, like he would say yes. Like a lot of my dad was very creative. Like, the Big Show, like was talking to me at the Hall of Fame thing, and he was just telling me, like, dude, your dad, when I first got into the business, like he taught everyone. Like he would guide you and say, hey, this is what you need to do. Stay away from this person. They're an asshole. Like they're just gonna fuck you. Lean towards this. And he used to give people creative ideas like, hey, that sounds good, but what if you did it from this angle instead? Or what if you brought this person in and made it look this way? And I think he always was really looked up to in those regards. So I mean, not being there in the room when these things were created, I would say just knowing the way my father was and hearing his involvement back in that day, that he was probably a big part of the reason why those, two segments even, were created.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's funny too because I have arguments sometimes with people on my page, and one of the big ones that I have had before too. Same with the whole acknowledging your dad as a world champion. That's one, and then this one too. The whole was he part of DX or not? I just had it recently, maybe like a couple weeks ago. To me, the logic I use is when D-Generation X gets named, when Bret Hart tells Shawn, "You guys are nothing but a bunch of degenerates," Shawn says verbatim, yeah, you know what? We are degenerates. D-Generation X. That's who we are. Me, Triple H, China, Ravishing Rick. We're D-Generation X. So he, in the initial naming of the group, he says Ravishing Rick. Like to me, that's it right there. Like those are the four original members of D-Generation X, and it really bugs me that other fans, and especially WWE, this whole past year. I know you had made a comment before about it because I had posted something about it, and I think you said something along the lines of, "Oh, they probably just didn't want to have me give another induction speech," which that was a good line, dude, by the way. But yeah, I just did not understand why they wouldn't acknowledge him as being an original member of D-Generation X, as he was right. He's the insurance policy. He's kind of what kicks it off. You know what I'm saying? He's what brings it all together, because to that point, it was just a loose affiliation with Triple H in China that Shawn Michaels had. But when Ravishing Rick comes, it becomes a quartet. It becomes a group, a stable.
It ties it in, yeah.
So to me personally, I don't understand. What about you, dude? What are your memories from that time, and just knowing that your dad was in DX and all that stuff?
Man, like that was always cool. Like, I mean, like I always just like getting the gear. Like, they would get shirts made and shit like that. And I'd see like Shawn Michaels and Triple H rocking them on TV. And then like my dad would bring home like a box of them. So like that was always cool and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't really understand the dynamic of the relationship that my father, left this world with, in regards to like Vince McMahon. But I know that they weren't best of friends. And, for whatever reason that may be. But like going back to this like whole controlling thing, man, if you did polls, if this was like a public opinion thing with the fans, like it should be, who actually gets inducted instead of just a decision by an executive, then I really think things would be different in that regard. I can't speak to my opinions as to what the situation is there, why he wasn't included. But all I can say is it is what it is. I feel honored that, Vince let us, finally put him in there, in the Hall of Fame, and we got that opportunity for him, because like that he literally gave his life for that. Like, he woke up every day, worked his ass off, traveled nonstop to make this a reality for everyone. And if it, for whatever reason, I can't speak to it, but I just think there might be something a little bit more deep, kind of on a corporate level, as to why that's not being done.
Oh, I definitely agree, dude. I'm 100% in agreement that I don't understand why first of all, why he wasn't put in, and second of all, why it took him so long. Because I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you what your feelings were about that, you and your family, as far as the timing of your dad's induction.
No, honestly, I'm not an idiot. It's kind of coincidental that he decides to let my dad go in right after my brother passes away.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that, but if you're already,
I'm fine. Trust me. Like between losing my father at 9, my brother when he was 19, I've got 2 best friends who passed like 2 years before my brother did. So like I'm very familiar with how this world works and the way everything kind of reality is. But it's very like I'm not an idiot, and you can't tell me that after all these years. Like literally no disrespect to anyone. I'm, not going to name drop, scraping the bottom of the barrel and putting certain people in the WWE Hall of Fame. And then you just got guys like, Kurt Hennig, my dad, and like just sitting on the shelf. Like what? Like it just doesn't make any sense to me.
No,
and
dude.
And then my brother passes and it's like, hey, guess what? He's getting inducted. Like, okay,
I don't
thank you for your, I don't know. I kind of feel like that was like, all right, we're sorry we're sorry your kid died. Here's your husband's recognition. Like, I don't know. And they cut that out of the end of the video that they got on YouTube. Like me, mentioning my brother, that's like cut out at the end. Like they control it all. They do what they want to do.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that. No, I found it on YouTube actually, because I went on the network and I tried to watch the speech on the network, and that speech was drastically altered. We'll put it that way. They definitely on the network, it's definitely edited out. I was able to find a version of it where you do, you do honor your brother also, and you guys even were able to have him up on a big screen, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, no, dude, I didn't like that. It gave me an icky feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like the best way I can describe it. It just made me feel like I'm gonna be
honest with you. I knew something was kind of off. Like maybe like a week after like the whole thing happened, because like the original video that they had up, like you said, like they re-released one, like the actual WWE network, that was like highly modified and like cut in so many different places. Like I think they only showed like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, but it was actually like a 5.5 minute speech. And I think, I'm saying this from the most humble place possible, but like there was even news articles about it, like Rick Rude's son stole the show. And they didn't like that because I wasn't the reason that people, you know what I mean? I was not supposed to do that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, dude. Your speech was on point. It was awesome. I feel like your dad would have definitely been proud of it. But yeah, no, I don't like that it's altered. I don't like that.
Well, yeah, someone like they had like someone in the audience who recorded it, and their video ended up getting more views than the WWE network's videos for even any of the other inductees. So that's when the video got pulled down, and then they re-released that short, like 1.5, 2 minute clip, and that's the one that's up there today on the WWE network. Like, yeah, I just don't think. I don't know why. Like I said, like where their heads at, but I just don't think they want us back down there for some reason, and that's maybe the reason why.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I was, I didn't have this insight at first, but I had that feeling too especially when the DX is inducted and he's not there. I'm just like, oh, that doesn't smell right to me, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like Vince, he's known to hold a grudge. You know what I'm saying? Like he's known to hold a grudge for a long time. A lot of people would like to say like, oh, he's a billionaire. Why would dude? He's a human at the end of the day. Like I don't put that above him, especially with some of the stories you hear about him. Because it makes look, I don't care. I'll fucking name drop a lot of people. Donald Trump, the Drew Carey's. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many people that are in the Hall of Fame that don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? And there's guys like your dad who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. If this is a sport, if this is anything other than like an arbitrary decision made by some fucking guy in Titan Towers, then your dad is in a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a first ballot guy.
I don't understand why it's not like, like a fan network poll. Like, why don't you vote for who's inducted into the Hall of Fame? Because like you just said, like, you got Donald Trump, Drew Carey, people like this. Do you really think like all the fans in the world that those are the 2 people they would choose to put in there? Of course not. Like you do this for the people who, make you money, Vince. You do it for the fans. That's why you're in business. Let the fans choose. Like that's the thing. Like I'm very big on like just doing things the way you want to do them and then saying that everything's great and everything. It's not. Like, let the fans choose these things.
No, 100%, dude. I mean, I personally think there had to have been some heat for what he did when he went to Nitro. When he, because I mean, I already kind of touched on it earlier.
He's the only person who found a loophole in Vince's contract.
Exactly, and Vince does not like to be made to look stupid, and your dad made him look really stupid.
Yeah, enough to where on page 6, there's something called a Rick Rude clause.
Really, I was not aware of that.
It's called the Rude clause.
Oh, dude, that is epic.
It's basically when you were working under the promotion of WWE, you may, under no circumstances, work or receive any type of like have any involvement with any other promotion. He found a loophole, and like that's the reason why it took so long, and that's why I say the timing is convenient. That my brother passes, and Vince finally like, all right, yeah, you know what? We're sorry your kid died. Here's the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, dude. Like I said, it was always fishy to me. Obviously,
if it didn't have something to do with that, like he would have been inducted way before that.
Yeah, way before that. Like I said, I never. When they inducted your dad, dude, it had been like I was like, I had to do a double take because I was just like, wait, hold on, dude. Like I know there's been like at this point there's been so many Hall of Fames. By 2017, there had been like 13 other years of the Hall of Fame going down. So I wasn't, I couldn't read them all off the top of my head. But I was just like, wait, they're inducting Rude? I'm like, he should have been in there. Fuck, he should have been one of the first 5 classes. Like, not to mention the first one. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is it 2017 and we're barely getting the induction of Ravishing Rick Rude? It made no sense to me. Now that you talk about it, and now that we're actually discussing it, it makes a lot more sense.
It's political. It's all political, and no taking nothing away from McMahon or his family. Like, I'm in business too, and being cold and being ruthless and holding a grudge in business, I'm sorry, that's the reason Vince McMahon's where he is to, this day and time. And, it's one of those things I can't get upset with someone for being who they are, but just in light of the situation, that's my take on it. I have mad respect for the guy and where, he's taken this company and, what he's done for his, family personally. But as far as that goes, that's black and white to me. Him and my dad had that beef. My dad got one over on him. He held that grudge, didn't induct him. And then all of a sudden he probably had a bit of humanity when my brother passed away and said, all right, let's just, let's do this for these people.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's pretty black and white. When you break it down, that's obviously what happened. Let me ask you this though. What's your favorite moment of your dad's career? Like if you could pick one, whether you were alive for it or not, whether it's, predates you or not, what's your favorite, moment where you go back and watch and you're just like, damn, my dad was a real star.
Man, there was a few of them, man. I mean, there was one instance in particular where he let me when he got me on TV, when the Nitro thing happened, do you remember the Nitro girls?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I realized that my dad was actually I knew he was famous, but when I really was like, wow, this dude can call shot, what the hell? He got me, I danced with the Nitro girls, when they filmed that, in one episode in Atlanta, it was me. And do you remember the referee Pee Wee?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Me and his son actually went out there with these girls and jammed out and danced in front of the whole arena, when one of their little breaks came on. And when my dad was able to pull that off, because he was like, hey ladies, I got to go do this. We watched the boys. And I was like, all right, cool. And they were like, hey, you should come out and dance with them. I'm like, can we do that? And they asked my dad. My dad was like, went upstairs, came back down, was like, yeah, go ahead. And my aunt told me, she was in the gym on the treadmill and watching it. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh shit, that's Rick. That's Rick. What is he doing? That was one of those moments where I was like, that's crazy. And then maybe one where he was performing, my favorite moment from his career where I was like, this dude had balls of steel and was really about this, was when Jake Roberts ripped his pants off in the ring. And he was butt ass naked or just bare ass in the ring. Do you realize how many people used to pack those stadiums back then? And not even to mention the people on TV. And this dude willingly was like, all right, I'm going to let you rip my pants off in front of all these people.
That I remember renting that VHS, dude, and seeing that match with Jake and your dad. And I remember when that went down, and then they're like WWE, obviously they put it under they put that black, they black it out or
Mhm.
whatever, and that just made it even 10 times better. And I remember thinking that too as an adult, because I'm just like, as a kid, you're just like, oh, that's funny, but as you get older, you're like, damn, this motherfucker had some balls on him. He must have really had some self confidence to be like, yeah, go ahead, rip my
Yeah,
shit
I
off.
mean,
Well, and that's like the second time he did that in his career. So I came across some old footage where Jesse Ventura, back when he was involved with the promotion, they had like this award ceremony. Like it was, I don't know what it was under, if it was WCW or something even before, like maybe when he was with like Southeast Championship or whatever, the promotion was back then. But he was like, he got some award, and it's like the body, Jesse the Body Award, like for the best body in the WWE. And it was between like him, the Ultimate Warrior, and someone else. And he ended up getting it. But like he walked up to accept the award, and he was in a robe. And like he walked up to Bobby Heenan, took the robe off, and Bobby's like holding it up. And then all of a sudden you see my dad like drop underwear and stuff like that, and then start walking over to the podium, and like Bobby's like running after him to try to keep him covered up and shit. Like he, like, honestly, like the dude was the most confident guy ever. I swear to God, that was true. That he really believed he was the sexiest man alive.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I know that he's the recipient of the Jesse the Body Award. That's one of my favorite, what I'm saying, like lines that Jesse was dropping at that Rumble the year when him and Warrior had the pose off. It's like, oh,
Yep.
here's the winner of the Jesse the Body Award. So yeah, that's awesome. But I didn't know that your dad did that when he accepted it, and I had no idea. That makes it even cooler, dude. Your dad was such a fucking badass, bro. Like it's really, it's fun to sit here and talk about it and just to reminisce. And this is why I love doing episodes like this, because you know what I'm saying, like it gives me a chance to relive some of the greatest stuff that I remember seeing as a kid. And your dad was definitely one of my favorites, dude. Even though I missed the peak, I was born in '89, and so he was when I was around what 8 or 9. That's my biggest memories of your dad came. Like the biggest memory I have of your dad was him showing up on Raw and Nitro. And then from there on, I went and I started renting VHSs and doing more homework and learning more about your dad, and he became one of my favorites. But I remember the first time I seen him was as a part of DX. And I just remember thinking like, God, this guy's just a badass. Like he just stands there with the suit, and he's got the suitcase, and he just has the arms crossed. He looks so dope. And then, man, when he showed up on Nitro and Raw, like that was such a big moment for me. And he goes on, he's like, what a difference a day makes. And he's just rubbing his chin, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm like, God, this guy is so badass, dude. So I mean, I love your dad, dude. That's one of my favorite moments of his, is just when he shows up. And like I said, it sent shockwaves. He's still the only man ever, like in the history of all professional wrestling, the only person to ever show up on two rival promotions, on two rival networks on the same night. Like no one can ever take that away from him. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck the Hall of Fame, fuck all the stuff that Vince.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like he really pushed the envelope with this stuff, and like all the guys he worked with will tell you that same thing. Like he was the most involved. Like he was really driving this thing to like evolve. And like it's a shame. Like I think about it all the time. How the industry would be different if he was still alive. Like if my dad was here to accept that award. First of all, if he was here, he probably wouldn't have got inducted into the Hall of Fame. We'll go ahead and say that. But if he was here, just how different the sport would be today.
Oh yeah, I agree. I hate to say that, but if your dad was alive, I don't think they would have. I mean, because like I said, Vince is a motherfucker, dude. He will do that. He will hold a grudge, and your dad was like you already said, he got one over on him. He's probably one of the only guys that got one over and never really had to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Vince likes to have guys grovel and come back and all that, but obviously that never happened with your dad, and so I think he kind of held his grudge or whatever over it. But yeah, man. It'd be a whole different game if your dad was still alive. It'd be completely different. He'd be, one of the elder statesmen that, had a real influence. And I would love to see your dad work with some of the younger talent, especially of that era. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, seeing where the industry has gone and like, how popular it's gotten kind of as, like, and it's just become so accessible for everyone to, actually have an opportunity at. There's training gyms all over the place now, and it's like common for, people to want to do this and actually work and learn and, get that opportunity. And back then it wasn't like that. I mean, it was kind of, these guys fell into it, and it wasn't the most desirable career, but it's what they had, and they made it happen. And, fortunately for my father and a lot of the other big guys, like it worked out. But I think today, you know, if he was still around, he would still be involved. He'd probably either have a training gym, or he'd be, you know, he would be working with another promotion, you know, doing creative, you know, writing, or he would be involved one way or the other with it. But, you know, who knows? He might even have a workout program like Dallas. Who knows what could have happened?
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. And I even feel like nowadays, a guy like your dad, who had fucking balls of steel and wasn't scared to speak his mind, he would have even crushed it on a podcast scene. You know what I'm saying? Like he could have had a once a week kind of show where he just spills the tea or just gives his opinion. I think that would have been awesome because Rick Rude, just as a performer and as the influence that he had and as a voice in professional wrestling, it's really hard to find guys to top him. And so, I mean, man, just what could have been, dude. It really sucks that that things went down the way that they went down. You mentioned something a little earlier. Last couple of questions, dude. You mentioned something a little bit earlier where you said you went to WWE to a tryout, to a training session before.
Yeah.
How close have you ever come to actually being like, okay, maybe I, what I'm saying, like it's in my genes, maybe I will try it?
Well, all right, so. That's a really good question. All right, so I was literally like, what I do for a living, I own a logistics company, like I own a brokerage firm. So we handle like, you know, big truckload transportations from everything. Like I don't give a damn if it's baby tigers or like a train engine. Like I can move it across the country one way or the other, charge something and make money doing it. So I'm sitting here one day and I'm like, just making sales calls. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to call up to the WWE and see like who moves like their sets around and everything, because these things go from like, you know, Buffalo, New York. They do a show, tear it all down really quick, ship that down to Erie, Pennsylvania. The very next night they're doing a show, go down to Cleveland, keep like, it just goes all over. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't really want to work, but this is what I do. I might as well call and tell them who I am, see if I can get some business out of them. So call them. I get a phone call back. And they're like, hey, we can't do this, but like, would you be interested in trying out? And I was like, why not? Like I didn't do it because like, I never want, like I said, you know, that was my dad's thing and I respected that. But I think as his son and him being as influential as he was, I just needed that question answered for myself that I can, like I was able to, if I wanted to. So I ended up accepting. And like, at the point that I did that, I was just working all the time, and like I was drinking mad beer. I was like way out of shape. So they were like, I was like, when's the tryout? And they were like, you got like 30 days from today. So I literally went home that night, started a diet, got back in the gym, hadn't been training at all, went down there and like did this tryout. Out of all the, like, they only had like 7 people there. Like it was a very like exclusive tryout. There was like 2 guys who were like second round draft picks in the NFL. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. They had like one Brazilian guy who, honest to God, looked like the Hulk. Like I've never seen anyone who blatantly ate HGH the way this guy did it. Like, looked like an absolute freak of nature. His name's Andre Baggio. I'll tell you that. If you want to look this guy up, look at pictures of him, freak. So he's there, and then I walk in. I'm like, oh, I've only been training 30 days. They only asked 2 of us to come back. One of the guys took it. And I still talk to him every once in a while. Awesome dude. Funny enough, he was from Minnesota too. So he's the one who actually, like, we're sitting there, like, getting there the first day. They make us like sign all this stuff. And he's the one who actually found that Rude clause. He's like, did you see this? And I was like, well, he's like, page 6. And I looked and I was like, oh shit. And it said what I told, like, you can't work for any other promotion. So we did this whole tryout and everything. And like, they're like, all right, you weren't ready, but we want you back. We want you and Mike to come back and do it again. Like, we'll give you 2 months, give you ample time, get in shape, come back. Because like our promos were awesome. Like Dusty Rhodes was there. He worked with us on our promos. It was fucking awesome. Like he was like, Dusty was behind the camera. He like threw me something, but he didn't throw me anything. It was just an imaginary thing. And I caught it. And he was like, good. You caught the apple. I said, what do you want me to do with it? He's like, sell me this apple. And I had to like basically like on the spot do an improv Apple commercial. And then we did like a promo. And it was just a blast, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, dude. I can only imagine. The son of Ravishing Rick Rude. There was definitely some that they must have definitely seen some dollar signs there, dude. Because we're in an era where everybody's, you know, it's you get the sons of so many legends. You got guys like Cody. Obviously, Dustin's been doing it forever, and you know the lucha libre tradition is there's always a junior, and there's always the lineage continues, dude. So I think that's awesome. I think that's cool that they you know they wanted you back out of the 7 guys. That's a pretty exclusive training, you know, class, and that they asked you and another guy back. I think you know that speaks volumes to your potential and just your genes, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like it's in you somewhere. But I think that's cool, and I think it's also I respect the fact that you know that, hey man, this was my dad's thing. I respect it. I love it. But I have more respect than to try to do, you know. So I definitely see where you're coming from that
yeah, I mean, like it was a big kind of turnoff because when I cut the promo, you know, one of the people who was there was Billy Gunn, like he was one of the coaches, and I mean, obviously, like you know, my dad was built. I quite honestly think I have a pretty good physique myself. I'm actually bigger than my dad was. Like my dad was 6'4", I'm 6'7". He was like 244 or like 240, I think was like his card weight. And I'm like 255. So I'm like substantially larger and like, you know, proportion than my father is. And like, I went in there and like, after talking with my mom, she's like, all right, well, when you have to come up with these promos and you have to do this kind of stuff, she was like, you were Rick Rude. Your father gave you his name and he sure as hell gave you his arrogance. Go in there and be Rick Rude, but be your Rick Rude. I went in there and cut a promo and like did this whole like great dialogue about like how I'm like the son of sexy. Like you haven't seen it since then until that, like awesome promo. And the first thing that is said, Dusty Rhodes starts clapping and Billy Gunn says, we've heard that a million times before. And I'm like, and I literally looked at him and said, where did that start? And he's like, we need something original. I'm like, that's bullshit because everyone in the industry now is riding off of someone else's coattail.
Right. And it's in your blood. Like it's in your blood. If anybody has the right to, you know what I'm saying, like use that or you know, kind of step into that.
That was exactly my thought. I'm like, first of all, why wouldn't I like, excuse what? Like I was so taken back by it. And I think that goes back to like, we were like the creative powers has been taken out of it. Like, why would you not play on that? You can't tell me, like, don't tell me that's not original because you know damn well that's exactly what Vince would have me do. I would be ravishing Rick Rude Jr.
Yeah,
like, you can't tell me that's not the angle you would use with me. And,
and that's
you're sitting here giving me
right
like, crazy.
In my opinion, that's the right angle too. Like I don't see why you would try to reinvent.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's ready made. You're right there. You like you said, like your mom said, your dad gave you his name for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like you're Rick Rude. Like you're the second coming. I don't understand why they would have had it.
Could you imagine like me and Joe, like Curtis Axel? Could you imagine them putting me and Joe together doing like a Mr. Perfect and Rick Rude like the sons of Kurt Hennig? Like it would be incredible. Like there's so many different angles you could work with it. And I'm like, what the hell? And
dude,
like, it all goes back to, like I told you, it's a political atmosphere. It's got nothing to do with logic and everything to do with what he wants done.
Oh no, I definitely believe that, dude. And for a great example, you look at Curtis Axel. You know what I'm saying? Like you look at Joe Henning, a guy that the lineage is there, the ability was there, and then they like half-ass tried. You know what I'm saying? Like they halfway committed to him and then made it look like it was his fault for not getting over, when it's like, dude, you barely tried with him. Like,
yeah,
you have so many, you know, quote unquote great writers and professionals and experts and stuff, and then you still miss something so obvious. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, imagine you and Curtis Axel, you could have been, you know what I'm saying, like kind of similar to what Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. did. You could have came out with that similar clout, you know what I'm saying, like as the sons of legends. And yeah, to me that's definitely a missed opportunity, dude, because yeah, you I mean, it's there, bro. Like I don't see how they didn't see it. Like you are Rick Rude Jr. for a reason. So
yeah, man, I'm telling you, like I would have loved to have done it. I mean, it's got nothing to, like, my business is, you know, we have a good business and things like that, but like just for the entertainment of it, like to be a part of like that lineage and just to actually give like a little input to it, you know, that like my father can't give anymore. I would have loved to have done that. Like I don't need to be a John Cena or a Dwayne Johnson, but like, you know, if they would have given me a little bit more like respect for like what could have been, like it just seemed very narrow minded. Like it was just like a shim sham type thing. But then I also recognized that a lot of the guys who they had down there training me lived in my father's shadow. And why would they, you know what I'm saying? Like, they probably see it that same way. Like, you know, what are you just going to come in here and do, like, oh, because you're Rick Rude's son? But yeah, I mean, like, you guys, that's your, like, get me in shape, guys. You know the business. I am my father's son. I have a charismatic personality. I can speak. I'm not scared to be in public, like, you know, on display. Like, work with me. Give me a little enthusiasm, and I will give you, like, let's give it a shot. And I just didn't see it. And when they asked me to come back, I didn't take it.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I definitely feel what you're saying. Yeah, why would you? You know what I'm saying? If you can already see the writing on the wall of like, this might not, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like
Well,
they
that's
wanted you to.
you know, like, why am I? Because they literally, you give them your life. They own you. It's like the military. When you're on Vince's payroll, they own you. And like, I'm like, unless you see the value in me, if you don't want me, if you're just going to use me, like so many other of these talented people, poor souls, God rest them, that aren't here anymore. If you're just going to use, you know, I don't need that. Like this, there's opportunity here, and I can give you all the energy you want. But like, they just didn't, like, I just didn't feel it. There was no enthusiasm with it. And I was like, why am I going to come back and do this at the first time you didn't even show me enthusiasm?
No, that's completely understandable, dude. And I feel like that's a little bit of your dad in you right there. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like your dad wouldn't have took that shit either. So that's definitely, you know,
Well, he didn't, and that's, you know, the nitro thing, and then the EC, like he didn't. He did not put up with that shit. Like, he found a way, and he did it, and it pissed someone off, and that's why we're here today.
absolutely, dude. I wanted to ask you one last thing before we wrap this up, and it's pretty much, what would you like your, you know, I'm saying, because your dad's legacy is pretty much at this point, you know, he's ravishing Rick. Probably, I've had a lot of people comment, dude, because obviously I do the page and I've gotten a pretty big following now, and whenever I post stuff about your dad, it's consistent, dude. I get so many comments about like, oh, best heel ever, you know, best heel ever, best heel ever. Like, he lived the gimmick. He was, you know, he was the best heel. So I mean, if I'm even being generous, I'm saying he's top 2, top 3 heels ever in the business. What would you like your dad's legacy to be? Like, are you happy with that legacy? What else would you like to be added onto that? Like, what would you like the lasting legacy of your dad to be?
Man, I'm going to be completely honest with you. You know, I just want people to know that, like, you know, this was his life. Like, you know, he worked hard, and he did that for us, for his like personal family. But you know, I just want all of his fans to know that, like, from the moment he got into it, and they gave him, like, the fans gave him that opportunity. They loved him. They loved what he was putting off. Like, if it wasn't for them, like, that's the reason he did everything he did. I just want people to know that, you know, I don't care. There's 2 sides to every fence, and you know, it's the same fence, but it looks different on both sides. Like, everyone's got an opinion. I don't care if anyone includes him in this, includes him in that. It really doesn't matter, because I know who my father was, and all of his true fans and people who knew him knew who he was. So I guess, you know, if to add anything to that, I always tell people I cannot express enough how much the fan love meant to him. Like, more so than anything else, that's what he did it for. So, like, you know, don't think that he was doing it for the belt, for the fame, like, he literally loved the love that he got from the fans, and that's the reason he woke up every single day and worked hard. So, like, that's what I want people to know about him.
Oh man, that's, you know what? That's funny, because what I kind of assumed that already anyways, because when you're in the business and you do the stuff, like when you commit to something so fully, like the way your dad did, it's got to be because you've got a love for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's the love for the business, whether, like you said, it's for the fans, whether there's something else behind that, you know, driving that. And so, man, I'm lucky and to have been able to see your dad while he was still alive, to be able to watch that and experience that. I'm glad that it wasn't too out of my era, to where, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm really, really well educated on your dad, and I've gotten to see so much of his stuff. I kind of feel sorry for the people, like, you know, for the kids now that they'll be here in 20 years and stuff like that, because, you know, every year, you know, not just your dad, but the history in general of professional wrestling changes, and it kind of gets, you know, a little that light dims a little bit. And that's kind of why I'm, you know, like, why I decided to go with retro stuff. Because I mean, to me, the least that I could do, and the reason I do this, is because I want to make sure that current day fans, maybe people who didn't know about your dad, or maybe people who didn't know about any other people, get that opportunity, dude. Because I mean, like I said, a little piece of magic is gone nowadays, and your dad definitely possessed it, and he definitely knew how to harness it and how to deliver on every single level of professional wrestling. So, dude, just from me, from the fans all over the world, thank you for doing this. Thank you for keeping your dad's legacy alive. One of the greatest, like I said, to ever do it, and to your point, he did it for the fans. He did it for the love of the business. So I got to thank you so much, dude, for coming on, taking your time, and coming on and talking to me about the legend that was your dad.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate the opportunity. It's anytime we talk about him, we keep his memory alive. So, like I said, and I appreciate what you do. And the past influences the future, and you're in the right era for what you're doing. And like I said earlier, man, just keep doing this, and one day hopefully it'll get back to that same electric energy.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. Once again, dude, thanks again, Rick. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right, take it easy, buddy. Bye bye.